Hi everyone, it's Sid at Cool Moviegram. Hope you're well, hope you're safe. Yeah, just managed to finish work and, got some time off coming up. Got married on the weekend. Yeah, hey, celebration time. So today we're going to be reviewing the 88 films release of New Fist of Fury, which is, of course, starring Jackie Chan and Nora Mill, and also Chen Sing, who's a very popular kind of leading man slash villain in a lot of old school kung fu movies, particularly from the Basher era. Now, yeah, this film itself, of course, official sequel to Bruce Lee's 1972 classic Fist of Fury, which was also directed by Lo Wei, who's the director of this. And yeah, the film itself is about the survivors of the Qingwu School from Shanghai, which is Nora Mills' character, who is Bruce Lee's fiance in the film, and also just a couple of others who are actually aided by the police inspector, played by the director Lo Wei himself, to actually leave Shanghai for Taiwan. When they reach Taiwan, you see that the Chinese are kind of suffering the same fate as they were in Shanghai, as in Japanese occupation and being bullied and oppressed. And there's also a Japanese school headed by a bad guy played by Chen Sing, that's trying to kind of pacify all the Chinese martial arts schools under his umbrella, like have total control over them. But of course, and then in the midst of this, a young thief named Alung, played by Jackie Chan. This is pre-plastic surgery Jackie Chan, bearing in mind 1976 is when the film was made and released. Decides to actually stand up to the oppression, and decides to learn martial arts under the Qingwu School, and then and eventually stand up against the bullies. Now, of course, the film itself, personally, I've seen this film a few times. I had it on VHS and also had a DVD from Eastern Heroes, which is the full uncut version. The transfer wasn't great. It was really kind of washed out color and just wasn't really bright, or it wasn't clear at all. And I didn't really like the movie as much because Jackie Chan, he kind of even though he's from the start of the movie, but he doesn't really get to show off his ability. Bearing in mind, even though this was the first film that was released where Jackie Chan was actually given the lead role in a movie, but his first actual film as a lead star was the Young Tiger from Kwantung, or Young Tiger of Kwantung, which was then kind of like chopped up again and then released as Master with Cracked Fingers in 1979, I think. Yep. But yeah, this was the first film that he did with Lo Wei Productions, and of course I could see that they were trying to kind of make him a serious leading man, not exactly a Bruce Lee ripoff, as many of those other Bruceploitation actors were doing at the time this film was made, and even carried on up until about the 80s. He was actually playing, just trying to be a more serious leading man. That's why he was kind of cast into. Bearing in mind, this was the first time that Jackie Chan was actually given kind of like headliner status in kind of a prolific film, which didn't do so well at that time. But yeah, I mean, Lo Wei at that time was considered a very successful and prolific director who had actually gone independent and made some films in Taiwan. So of course the original language version, which was longer, it's about 2 hours long, and yeah, that's the version that I watched initially because it included, of course, a longer opening. And yeah, but overall, I mean, for me, the film, it just didn't really kind of match up to what Jackie Chan was able to do. His talent, his abilities, they weren't really fully utilized in this film. I mean, maybe if they, I mean, the story was interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong, I actually thought the story was quite good. It could have actually progressed a lot more, but it's just maybe the screenplay didn't really capture the story and the characters as much. I mean, Jackie Chan does have a good screen presence. Again, his abilities as an actor or a martial artist were not really put to the test. I mean, the one scene of his that stands out is when okay, spoiler alert if you haven't seen this film, the bad guys have actually gone to the new Chinwoo school. They don't like the fact that they've actually stood their ground. They actually bully the school. They take down their sign and break it down in front of everyone. And Jackie Chan stands up. He says, he gets a bunch of chopsticks. He breaks one. He says, yeah, because you know, you can break it on your own. Because can you break a bunch, you know, hundreds of them together in one go? He goes, no. He goes, together we are stronger. Being alone, we are weak. So united we stand, divided before. I thought that was actually the standout moment in the film where you'd see that, okay, wow, he's actually got some sort of a presence here. But bearing in mind this was before he became a global superstar, where he actually became the biggest star in Asia. I mean, that was just 2 years away. But yeah, this was out on the road. I mean, so for me, I mean, the fight scenes, I mean, that's what you want to see. There's not that many of them in comparison to most Jackie Chan films. He doesn't get to do as much. The rest of them, they're very kind of old school basher type of fight scenes. It's just literally people kicking the crap out of each other. That's all. That's all there is to this film. But it just there's nothing that stands out. I mean, the way that they tried to get Jackie Chan to do the whole Bruce Lee's kind of like Mi-Zong fist, or the Fist of Fury as they call it in the original movie. It just looks terrible. It just looks really kind of like he's just flailing his arm, flaying his arm. His arms are flailing about like this. It just doesn't look as graceful or enigmatic. Like even that shot in the film, in the original Fist of Fury, when you see Bruce Lee kind of move his arms, it's just done in like kind of like just really kind of slow motion. It's like, the way it just kind of, it looks very fluid. I mean, Jackie Chan's version just didn't look as fluid at all. It was just far from it. Um, Otherwise, yeah, I mean, this film is just passable entertainment. I mean, so I would say at best I'd give it 2 stars out of 5. Not the best. I mean, me being a huge Jackie Chan fan, I've seen probably every film. I've got most of them on Blu-ray and a few on DVD. I've seen some of them prior to New Fist of Fury, but from there all the way up until present time, I've actually seen all of his movies. And yeah, this is like before he was making the top tier movies, of course. So I would say 2 out of 5. Now the Blu-ray release. Now I thought, okay, first of all, the packaging. Kung Fu Bob is is the man. Him and Darren Wheeling literally make some of the best artwork for some of these old school Hong Kong movies, especially when it comes to these 88 films releases. I thought the design is just so cool. It actually makes it look like a better movie than the film actually is. And I haven't seen the shorter version, and until I saw the Hong Kong Legends DVD release of it. That's when I did see the shorter version. It was much more condensed, but the film, it still isn't really that great. But the transfers, I mean, 88 Films did an amazing job. I mean, this was the weakest one out of the low way films, I would say. I mean, the better ones I would say were Snake and Crane Arts of Shaolin, Dragon Fist, Spiritual Kung Fu. I mean, not perfect, but it still was a lot of fun. And yeah, they were the standout films, I would say. And Fearless Hyena, even though Jackie Chan had directed it, those were like the best films that Jackie Chan had actually done with the low way era. Even though some of them weren't that successful upon their initial release, but yeah, those were the standout films. But of course, this film, yeah, I mean, it looks amazing. I mean, 88 Films, again, 2K remasters. I mean, you could tell that they cleaned up the film, because I've always only seen this film in a very kind of washed out, dull looking VHS, or just like a really pan and scan bad copy on the Eastern Heroes DVD. And it was just amazing to see that that they'd done this. It still is. It's a very essential film, being the fact that it was one of like when Jackie Chan was actually given that chance to actually come into the limelight. But although they didn't utilize his abilities as a performer. And yeah, you get to kind of, I mean, the special features, even though there's not that many in terms of like additional documentaries. I would have loved to have heard like what Rick Baker had to say about this movie. Maybe just a little talk with him, or even Mike Leader. But then we did get a really interesting audio commentary with Brandon Bentley, and also Kung Fu Bob himself. The artist. So that was actually a really good feature. And you got the of course, reversible sleeve. You've got the booklet was interesting. I mean, I love this booklet. I mean, this was actually quite an interesting kind of retrospective of the film, and also the stars, including like Nora Mill. You got Jackie Chan, Chen Sing, and even the director Lo Wei. It kind of like more or less what they were going through in the actual film, and also got some stills of the movie, and yeah. It's a nice some nice presentation again. Kung Fu Bob does an amazing job once again. It's just awesome. I love this, and yeah, it's a good booklet, the presentation and everything. Yeah, so the movie gets, of course, only 2 stars for me, but I would say the packaging, the Blu-ray. I mean, especially if you're like a hardcore full-time Jackie Chan fanatic like I am. I've loved, I love his movies. He is for me one of my favorite like on-screen entertainers since I was a kid. I remember the first time I watched a Jackie Chan movie. I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I think it would have either been from one of my neighbors that my brother had actually borrowed, or I think it was a Police Story, or it must have been my uncle who had actually rented it from the video shop at the time. It was dubbed in English, and I thought, wow. I mean, watching Jackie Chan in that movie, I thought that made me a fan instantly. And the fact that he had made so many movies. I mean, when I was old enough to actually start like getting my own movies and actually start renting movies from the video shop, I used to actually just get as many Jackie Chan movies as I can, and a lot of the Imperial Entertainment, the VPD, and even some of the old low-weight era films that were released on video. I was able to actually kind of like rent them and even buy the X-rentals at times as well. Yeah, so overall I would say, yeah, the Blu-ray, yeah, definitely, I would say it's a 5 out of 5 for the packaging. I mean, I would say I'll recommend to get it. I mean, it'll be nice. It's nice to see it in good condition, but overall the film wasn't as great. It doesn't hold a candle against like Jackie Chan's top tier films, which were made from like 1978 to 1994. I would say that was the era of Jackie Chan's top tier work. I mean, that's where he had the best work. But then after 94, which was Drunken Master 2, his work started getting a bit mediocre-ish. There were still good movies in the late 90s, and leading up to the 2000s, he had a few duds here and there. But overall, they were still entertaining. They were still good movies. But this, definitely, I would say, was not on the same level. Well, yeah, that was my review. I would say definitely 88 Films know how to release a movie, and they know how to present a movie, and definitely one of my favorite boutique labels. And I look forward to all the other projects that they have coming out. They have still more to actually buy, but at the moment, of course, the wedding has just happened, so I've got to kind of at least try and slow down the Blu-ray purchases. I don't think she'll be really happy if I was to spend all that money on Blu-rays and movies and such. Okay, well, yeah. Anyways, it's Sid again from Cool Moviegram. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram. Thank you for those who have actually got me 100,000, about over 1,000 followers on Instagram. Considering I only started this back in January, that page on Insta, and started just sharing video, well, just pics of like of my purchases and movies that I like, and seems that there seems to be a big community that do like the same things, and we have a lot in common. Anyways, and I hope you all, follow me on subscribe to me on YouTube as well, and like my video and comment. I mean, out of the early Jackie Chan movies, this is the low weight era. What were your favorite ones?